So the next presentation is from our esteemed ANZREG chair, Ella, Rohde-Condon. There you go. I can pronounce your surname. That's good.
Yeah, I taught them all how to say it yesterday.
It is my honour to welcome our esteemed leader, Ella. She's going to be presenting on behalf of Trobe University. She's going to be discussing the community of practice that 4 Melbourne universities formed to compare workflows and improve Alma practices. I'll just give you a reminder about who Ella is. She has worked in collections at La Trobe for the past 9 years and is now the collections specialist, where she is responsible for many parts of Alma, from acquisitions to invoicing and everything in between. She is the resident authority on analytics, licenses, and usage data. She has also been on the ANZREG committee for 3 years, like me, and is the current chair. Take it away, Ella.
Thank you. All right. So yes, as you just heard, I am the collection specialist at La Trobe University. And for some context, our collections team are responsible for everything to do with both the physical and the digital collections, which means ordering, statistics, subscription renewals, invoicing, and troubleshooting for the whole collection. So we have a lot to do. And today I'm going to talk about a community of practice that we were involved in over the past 18 months or so. So as I'm sure a lot of you know, in library land, everybody kind of knows everybody. And it just so happened that a lot of former La Trobe collection staff are now scattered around Melbourne libraries. So in January 2023, some colleagues at RMIT reached out to a group of us with an idea. And that idea was a series of show and tell sessions focused on specific areas of Alma to learn from each other how we might each do things differently. We had a kickoff meeting with RMIT, La Trobe, the State Library of Victoria, and Monash University. And at this meeting, we agreed on how the community of practice would work, as well as some specifics. So we decided on 4 topics, which were licenses, collection setup, ordering and invoicing, and metadata. We also at this meeting decided roughly when each session would take place, spread out over the next 12 months or so, with a long lead-in time for preparation. So at this meeting, we also wrote brief notes about what the general structure of the meetings would look like. So we agreed on 1-hour sessions with roughly 30 minutes of presentation and 30 minutes of questions, as questions were an important aspect of the whole idea. So it was decided that whoever was presenting each session was responsible for organising the whole thing, and that would give people the experience of organising meetings with external staff to those who might not normally get that kind of experience as well. So once it came time to organise each session, it organically worked out that RMIT took the lead in creating the initial meetings. This was mostly because they had decided right at the very beginning of that very first meeting, who from their teams would be presenting in each area of those 4 topics we agreed on, whereas the rest of us were kind of just winged it throughout the year, and deciding once we had more detail about the discussions about what to cover, and then deciding who would present about that. So it sometimes worked out that after this initial meeting, someone would realise they were not the best person to present from their institution, and they would nominate someone else. These kickoff meetings were where the presenters agreed to specifics, such as what each person was going to talk about specifically. So we also decided at these meetings other important details like the running order, practice sessions, and the date of when it was going to happen. A key feature of the show and tell sessions was that one institution would be the main focus. So usually it was because they were doing something very different to everyone else. So in this planning meeting that happened at the start of each session, we would talk about how we did metadata, and if La Trobe was the one doing it differently to everybody else, they would be the main focus of that session, and then everybody else would kind of just present a smaller aspect of what they were doing. So what did we all gain from all of this? So because we kept it very casual and not intimidating at all, we didn't actually run any formal feedback sessions or give anybody a survey that they wouldn't complete. But after each session, we heard from our teammates about what we learned and whether they thought it was valuable. So I've just made this fun little word cloud of some of the things people liked about the sessions. So they were a great way to provide casual and no-cost networking opportunities, especially as our institutions are all located in Melbourne. I feel like now attending in-person events in Melbourne are going to feel a lot more friendly after we know many more of our local colleagues. For those people who were presenting at each session, they provided a great opportunity for people to present to an outside audience with minimal intimidation. I know plenty of my team members would never dream of presenting at a conference like today, but giving them a chance to present to a smaller group when they might even know a couple of the people from the other institutions already is a really great way to get used to presenting, especially as it was all online. That's becoming more and more common as a skill to need. So that was a really great way to get that practice in. There's also the organisation aspect. So it's pretty rare to organise meetings with colleagues at other institutions and to do group work with people you don't normally work with. So this was another great learning experience. And obviously, the biggest takeaway from all of it is the actual learning we got out of what other institutions are doing in Alma. So there are just so many paths that you can go down in Alma with how you set things up and how you do certain things, which we've all just heard from Monash. So this was a great way to learn what possibilities are out there. I know at La Trobe we've since had discussions about how we could implement some of the ideas we've learned from the others, or whether they would work for our specific needs. Or I know we've also had discussions about, oh God, I'm so glad we don't do it that way. That sounds very tedious. So yeah, there was a whole range of experiences. So one of the reasons we think it worked out so well is that we had a distinct mix of different stages of the Alma life cycle. So RMIT and La Trobe have been on Alma for years, since 2014 and 2015. While, as you just heard this morning from Monash, they were in the middle of this re-implementation process while these were sessions were going on. And the State Library were brand new to Alma. They had only migrated 6 months before the project kicked off. So this mix provided a range of perspectives, with some people at, say, the State Library were seeking to learn for the first time how things can be set up, and what things in Alma look like. There were certain areas of Alma that the State Library haven't even got around to exploring yet. So they were learning from us for the first time. And others who were just curious about whether our way is the easiest, the best, or the quickest way of doing something, or maybe we should change what we're doing. So recommendations. I think if you have the opportunity to set up something like a local community of practice, you should absolutely do it. It's been great for us for so many different reasons. And I hope we continue into the future having more sessions when specific topics arise. My main recommendations are: keep the group small. This minimizes the intimidation aspect, but it also helps with organization. So having somebody, thankfully for us, that was RMIT, take the lead worked really well. They kept everyone else accountable and made sure the planning meetings actually happened. I know if I was in charge, they probably would have not have happened at all. Keep it adaptable. As you heard a few minutes ago from Monash, they were in the midst of a rather large project when this was kicking off. So they initially agreed, and while they wanted to stay involved, it just really was not feasible for them to commit to presenting during the re-implementation process. So after the first session, Monash became observers, and they attended all of the sessions, but just as observers and asking questions rather than presenters. They just didn't have the time, but that was totally fine. The rest of us had plenty to say. We also ended up moving dates a couple of times because of illness and workloads, but we're always open and adaptable when these changes were necessary. The next one, keep the topics broad. So with our 4 main topics, we thought they were specific enough to provide direction, but broad enough that once the small group met, they could really tailor their presentation to the skill set of those in the group and have discussions about how each institution did things differently. keep it casual. So I've said this a couple of times, but it really was key to the whole thing. We had no formal feedback sessions. We tried to ensure that presentations themselves didn't require too much preparation and could kind of be pulled together pretty quickly. And we also left heaps of time for questions so that we created more of a community of practice environment than a lecture or a conference vibe. And finally, keep an open mind. Yes, we had to make changes. We didn't know what topics were going to be covered. We didn't know if people thought our processes were interesting enough to listen to, but we all kept an open mind going into each session, and it really helped everyone to broaden their understanding of Alma and its potential. So finally, I'd like to thank Amanda Martin-Bianco at RMIT for having the idea in the first place and for getting the ball rolling, and to Zach Holly at the State Library of Victoria for sharing his thoughts and notes with me for this presentation. If I can leave you with anything from today, it's that if you're not already, reach out to your closest library who's also using the same software as you and share how you do things. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ella. So we haven't got any questions in the chat yet, but so if anyone does have questions, type quickly. In our back channel, I did ask, why is that statue upside down? And if anyone else was wondering the same thing,
it is art.
Yelena shared a fantastic link, which includes some quotes from the sculptor.
Yes, so it is art, and that is how the statue was sculpted. It's actually moved around a few times as well. So yes.
It's fascinating. It's very strange to see. Okay, so Karen has just asked us, do you have any other themes or topics in mind that you're hoping to collaborate on?
I do. I haven't shared them with others yet, but I have actually been approached by the people at RMIT, David Witteveen, I know you're here, about the all the cultural sensitivity stuff that's going on. I know we're both in the same kind of just starting to get the ball rolling on that phase. So whether that becomes a part of this or a separate project, I'm not sure. But there definitely are other things that we can talk about. Yes.
You mentioned that you were trying to keep it casual, but Marnie has asked, did you record the sessions and are they available for anyone to view who may be interested?
So all of the sessions except the one about licenses were recorded. So obviously the licenses one, we just found it too hard to blur out all of the information that we couldn't share with everybody. So we didn't record the license one, but the other three we have recorded, and they just live on each institution's own Teams. They're saved in Teams somewhere for each institution. So the presenters who presented all have the recordings and have shared them and saved them somewhere.
Right. Yeah. And Erin has asked, is the group open to people from other Ex Libris libraries?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. Get in touch and we'll see.
Great. That might be all the questions, and it might be about time to segue to the break.